Hello, horror fans. It's me, Cassandra from the Horrorcraft Podcast, and I am flying solo. But I have on a very special guest, John Massari, who horror fans might recognize the name as the man behind the iconic score for Killer Klowns from Outer Space. So let's get into this interview and get a little zany with the clowns. Hit the music. Hello, horror fans. It's me, Cassandra from the Horrorcraft Podcast. And today I have on a very special guest. I have on John Massari, who is the composer of Killer Klowns, among many other things, but definitely has cult status due to Killer Klowns. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Thank you for having me on. You've got to tell me, what part of the country are you on? Are you
Uh,
located?
I'm from Ohio.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you know Cedar Point?
See, no, I don't.
Okay, so Lake Erie,
Uh-huh.
up by the tip there. I'm from Sandusky and I live in Norwalk. So
Oh, good.
if you Cedar Point is like a big huge thing in Sandusky. So a lot of people, it's like a big, they call it the American roller coast,
Uh-huh.
because it has a lot of coasters. But yeah, so but
It's
Ohio.
called Sadesky.
Yeah, Sandusky, Ohio is where I grew up from,
Sadesky.
and I live in Norwalk now, which is more like
Okay.
a rural area. Um,
Awesome.
but yeah, Ohio is just perfect. But all right, so we're gonna go ahead and do a couple quick icebreakers. It's just some
Okay.
horror questions.
All right.
The first one, I absolutely gave up trying to do a ghost face with this, but what's your favorite scary movie? And this could be now, all time, anything in between.
Someone just asked me that. Um, what's my favorite scary
Yeah,
movie, or a movie that scared me the most? Um, um, I would have to say my favorite is, and it's a classic. It's The Shining.
yeah,
Yeah, The Shining is a brilliant piece of horror, for the simple reason is that, um, I've seen it so many times over my life that, I think people have to pay more attention to, human psychology, because there are people that are actually like that among us in positions of power, that you may find yourself working for someone like that, and they're controlling that part of their psychoses.
that's a really good point. Yeah, that it is a good character study on
Very,
being.
very scared.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so what is your favorite horror TV series? There's been a lot of really good horror TV the last couple of years. This could be new or old.
I think we just
Uh,
froze a little bit.
Yeah, we just froze for a
Yeah,
second. It's
yeah,
uh,
yeah. Black Mirror. I don't know if that's horror though.
yeah, that
Black
is.
Mirror.
Yeah, Black
Yeah,
Mirror is
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. It has elements. I know it's a little bit more like, the Twilight Zone on steroids, but there are elements of horror in that situation. So I'd have to say that is one of them.
That's a fantastic one. Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that that could
Yeah.
definitely be quantified as horror.
Hmm.
Um, so we're talking about Killer Clowns,
Hmm.
from outer space, and
Right.
so that deals with clowns and aliens.
Hmm.
So, what is your favorite clown or alien movie, or both?
Um, well, this is another one that's, I guess, is so standard. There's several, clown movie. I don't have besides Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I don't have a clown movie that's a favorite of mine. Uh,
Okay. All right. Well, we are back. So I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite scene from Killer Clowns? Like, whether it's your music contribution or just your favorite scene in general.
well, the scene, of the movie that I fell in love with is when they walked into the farmer up into the forest, and you see that beautiful spaceship it looks like a circus tent. And I was all in at that point. I said, wow, that's imaginative. There's something so warm and inviting about it, but yet it made a statement that the filmmakers, in my opinion, were like serious about this, even though it's like a crazy concept. I mean, it was so beautiful. It inspired me to make the approach of the music the way it is at present. And the scene that when we did the auditions, there were several composers that were auditioning. The scene that I picked was the scene where the kids come up to the circus tent, and they go in. They they figure out that it's not a circus tent, and it's potentially something from another world, and they try to escape. They run into the clowns, and then they escape off into the back to the town, and the clowns converge on the town. And that, if you had to see just one scene of the movie, that would kind of like set the tone. That's like what it would call a keystone moment. So that's the scene that I did, and that's the scene that they awarded me the job or the commission. And the music that we hear, the Killer Clown March, as the clowns wake up after being run over, and then they proceed to march into the town. I wrote that when I was like 16 going on 17 with my band, and it was just like going to be part of a song, and they just thought it sounded too jazzy, so we never developed it. So I was able to bring it back for the movie. But anyways, that's my favorite scene. I just love that spaceship. As far as I was concerned, the entire movie can take place inside that spaceship.
Yeah, that to me was also like a titular part because I obviously grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Ohio, and one of the big theme parks we have is Cedar Point, which I live like right by it,
Mm.
and they have Hollow Weekends. And one of the buildings is a big circular building, and for the longest time, they had a clown theme, and it looked almost
Really?
eerily similar to the spaceship. So the first time I saw it, and we went to Cedar Point afterwards, I just freaked out. I was like, I am not going in there. It's not happening. So, but I think that that's fantastic. So, in relation, you did this, and then a couple months later, you did the theme for the Wonderful World of Disney. Um,
Actually, that was before. That was
that was
several months
before.
before Killer Clowns. Yeah, that was. And
So, how did it feel going from that like one extreme to the other?
well, it's interesting. Um, I mean, uh, I did a film with a filmmaker from. He was working out of the D.C. area, and he had done a short film that he wanted to develop into a feature, and it was a H.P. Lovecraft story. And we did that. That turned out really well, and we're still good friends to this day. And he called me up after I did the Wonderful World of Disney. I think he came to the recording session for the Wonderful World of Disney as well, because he, coming back from the East Coast, he was in the Teamsters Union, so he was able to get a job at the Disney lot. So so that was a lot of fun. People see you do different things, and I get to see friends of mine do all sorts of different things. And then one day he gave me a call. He said, "Listen, normally I wouldn't bother you with something like this unless it was coming from people that I knew. And you may not want to do this because I know you're more of a serious composer. And I go, well, what is it? What is it? I know some guys that I work with back east. They now are out here, and they've worked with Tim Burton. They do lots of special effects, and they're three brothers, and they're really creative individuals. And they did a movie called Killer Klowns, or something, the Space Invaders of Killer Klowns, or something like whatever. He came up. He had some like weird interpretation of the title, and I go, oh my God, that sounds really interesting. I want to check that out, because probably a few years before, I think it was about 2 years before, I had seen Forbidden Zone by um, Richard Elfman, Danny Elfman's brother, and I just loved that movie because I saw the whole movie and I go, wow, I don't understand this movie. I want to see it again, you know? And so that's what Killer Clown, that title felt like me, because I said to myself, I want to do a movie like that, you know, that's so bizarre that people have to see it more than once to really enjoy it. So that's basically how it happened. It
Right.
was, it's actually kind of mundane, you know, when you think of it.
Right. But I mean, it's just so crazy, I think, for a lot of us to realize that not only like as horror fans, that
Mm-hmm.
you kind of were a cornerstone of our childhood because of Killer Clowns, but
Mm-hmm.
then Wonderful World of Disney, I remember growing up with that. I remember like watching the movies that they would play like
Mm-hmm.
on ABC,
Right.
and hearing that song, and I would never be able to put the two together. But now, like thinking about it,
Right.
I can see it, which is interesting. But I feel like that's so crazy because it,
Right.
you kind of have ticked two of like the childhood boxes for a lot of us
Mm-hmm.
growing up. So, but did you ever think that Killer Clowns was going to become the cult sensation that it is now?
Oh, I honestly wanted it to, because before that time, Tim Burton had done Beetlejuice,
Right.
and so remember the Kyoto brothers were supposed to work on Beetlejuice, but they were working on Killer Clowns, and so I saw Beetlejuice and obviously Pee Wee's Adventure, and I really liked what Tim Burton was doing. I'm saying, wow, this is like a really cool trend in in movies, not your typical horror movie where there's a monster. It's something imaginative, and Killer Clowns is imaginative and bizarre. And I worked really hard I wanted the music to be special, where it really reflected what um, my personality, I guess you can say. And I wanted it to be a success. And to be very honest with you, it was a heartbreak for me to know that it was only going to be in the movie theater for a couple of days, which is not enough time to gain an audience, really. Because when you
No.
think, and we had two really good reviews. There was the LA Weekly, and then there was the LA Times, that both gave it a good review. They basically said this is a very imaginative, bizarre, creative film you got to check out. So by the time people, they get the paper and they read it, they actually, people used to, like, every week read the movie reviews to see what was worth
Right.
seeing. So they would see that movie review. They would go to the Egyptian Theater, which was on Hollywood Boulevard, and they said, "Sorry, it left. It was only here for a few days." So it's like it just like dropped like a dead cat, like a dead cat bounce, where it just didn't come back. And so it was just a waiting game. We said, well, what's the next step? Oh, it'll be on cable, and then it'll be on video rental, and you'll see. The music director for the company that did it, he pegged it. He says, this is gonna get a cult audience. I guarantee it. It took a while. I think it was in 1999 or 2000. It's 23 years ago. Wow, where it
Yeah.
finally came up out on DVD, and that brought up its visibility. And then I think it went to cable. I think it was still playing on cable, right? I knew it was playing on cable because I would get statements, right? and but I didn't know that it was getting an audience. That's two different
Yeah.
things. When you have an audience that says, wow, I want to draw a picture like that clown. Wow, I want to dress up like that clown. Wow, I want my every time I go to a costume party or do cosplay, I'm going to dress like this character from this movie, and people are going to think it's cool, you know. And so it's like the fans that really, you know, they're resonated with the fans in a number of generations, because the people that would have probably seen it like in their 20s when it originally came out, families and maybe even grandkids, and they're like sharing it with their grandkids. And this is what I, when I do appearances from time to time, this is what I run into. You know, here's my grandson, or here's my oldest son and his son, or his daughter, and we just love the movie, and she just loves the part of the movie where this happens or that happens, and they watch it all the time. It's not like something, you know, there's some movies that you probably watch once every 2 or 3 years, and then there's these movies you just watch maybe twice a year, especially on Halloween, because it's just one of those things you like to experience again. So did I know it was going to be a uh, uh, cult classic? No, but I was sure hoping it would, and it's taken a while, and it is. Glad to say.
Yeah, most definitely. I can relate to what you're saying because that's how I saw it for the first time is when it started hitting sci-fi. Sci-fi for me, living in Ohio was like a huge gateway for horror because I saw so many different movies that I normally wouldn't see. And I know so many people have the same like feeling about it is that's how
Yeah.
they were introduced to it. And then it just kind of went from there. Um, and I do think it's gotten a second life since streaming because I think, you know, as horror fans, we have those go-to movies that we just recommend. I know for me, Killer Klowns is one of those, especially for someone who's starting out with horror, because I think it's just a great example of what horror can be and
Mm-hmm.
how fun you can mess around with different things and how you can just find comfort in these characters. But it has kind of taken a life of its own, especially even in my adulthood now with like Halloween Horror Nights when they had, you know, the Killer Clown Zone and then the Killer Clown House. And now, even with this past year, this past Halloween, Killer Clowns getting their own lounge fly bag. Like that's it, it's definitely taking on more of a life as streaming is becoming bigger. So I'm
Right.
really happy to see it because I do think that that's a lot of the case for a lot of horror movies that came out in the 80s and the 90s where they didn't get as much of a chance to kind of land. And now they've gotten a second life because of DVDs, because of
Yeah.
streaming, because of cable. So,
I went to school with a composer named
mhm.
Christopher Young, who did Hazer. And I remember telling them, I go, Chris, you are so blessed that your movie. I told him I saw Hellraiser twice. That's how long it stayed in the theater. Can you imagine if Hellraiser only was in the movie theater for a day or two, and then there people would talk about it. Wow, there was this crazy movie where there's a pinhead and there's a tesseract. There's all this insane, insane, bizarre characters, and little by little, people would discover it, and he goes, "Oh, I can't imagine what that would be like." Because it was like a hit kind of from the beginning, you know. So,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
yeah, so some things take a
Yeah.
while to well, definitely Killer Clowns took. I don't know if there's any other precedent, and I'm working with certain entities that really recognize in a very um, in a very important way of how a brand can develop. And there's so many wonderful things happening. As you know, there's a video game um,
Yes.
that I just technically just stopped working on a little bit ago. So it's coming up on 2 years, and so it's out of my hands now. And I've only seen certain things, and all I can say is that everything is very impressive. I just hope the fans really like it. And
Oh,
I'm
I don't think that's going to be a problem. Like I already know a lot of people who like are still hyping it up even after the initial announcement, and then
Mhm,
the different like promos that get released through the site. Now, that's one of
mhm,
the questions I was going to ask is
mhm.
how is it different to compose for the video game versus the movie?
Well, the video game, I can, believe it or not, I can take a deeper dive into the musical aspect. Um, I mean, to give you an example, I mean, for the original movie, if you add from the minute was, um, I had auditioned to the time I delivered, it was probably 8 weeks had gone by. That's right. And working on the video game, I did a lot of work over a period of 6 months, and then follow-ups over, sporadically over the year and a half or more, almost 2 years. So I was able to. There are certain pieces of music that were just very short in the film that really resonated with game developers that they really liked, and I was able to take that little 30-second or 45-second thing and expand it to 3.5 minutes, and develop it more. So it's definitely, I mean, people recognize, and what's really great is that I don't think that I covered a lot of um, musical cues that are kind of iconic, because they were focused on certain aspects of the movie, to have in this game. So perhaps that might be in a future iteration of the game. So there's enough musical material, to develop. It's like this. There's a live show that I've developed that is, I take musical material from the music, from the movie, and develop it into like these long, like synthwave metal, EDM sets. That's like, it's kind of like a variety show. You can check out my Instagram and social media. There's like a 60-second trailer of the last show that I did. So it's like dancing.
Right.
There's cosplay. There's contests. There's a lot of interaction with the audience. It's basically a family experience. Like a cool,
Yeah, it
hip
looks
family experience.
Yeah, it looks fun. Like I have checked out your Instagram before and I've seen that and it
Hmm.
looks just like a really good time. And I think that that's important, especially with a lot of these materials, is because so many
Right.
people resonate with it now that
Hmm.
I think, turning it into an experience is a big part of that. So, how did you feel about the concept with the game now where people can not only be the killer clowns. They can be either the people trying to fight off the killer clowns or they can
Right.
be the killer clowns.
Well, I think it's great. I have to learn how to play the game, and I'm going to do a fan outreach, like on, um, oh my goodness, what's the platform for gaming? It is
Theme.
called, what's that?
Theme.
There's themes, and then there's another one where people leave each other messages. There's message boards.
Oh, Twitch. There's Twitch and Discord.
Twitch and Discord. Gotcha. Twitch, I remember. So I have to set myself on Twitch and Discord at some point, because like maybe every other month, I'd
Mhm.
want to like have a day where people can play the Killer Clown game with Uncle John. And that will
Yeah,
give me enough
I'm
time to
down for that.
learn the game and be proficient enough to play people.
Right.
Or what might be funny is that I'm so terrible at it. I always lose.
I think you'll do great at it, but that would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So
That would be
definitely
a
when
fun
you
thing
get
to
that
do.
Yeah, definitely. So how important do you feel it is with the relationship with music and horror movies, especially?
Mhm.
Um, Especially, we talk about Killer Clowns, but there's so many other iconic movies as well. As you just brought up
Mhm.
Hellraiser, there's so many other ones. What do you think makes a good horror movie in relation to music?
Well, there are some horror movies that I've seen. Um, I'll just pick one example, like the Conjuring universe, which is an, uh, uh, a compadre of mine, an acquaintance of mine, Joseph Bishara, and right, is that his name, Joseph Bishara? Am I getting his name wrong? Yeah, Joseph Bishara, and I can't imagine any of those movies without the music. It's such a
Right,
definitive, organic part of those movies, and it's I think when a composer can really uh, uh, zero in and tune in to the whole philosophy and the subtext of the story, along with the visuals and everything that goes with the experience, it's almost as it's equally as important as the cinematographer,
right,
you know, that sets up the visual tone. So it's a huge responsibility. I mean, the great thing is that you get to do something new and different, and people are going to be more open to it than let's say what we call in the business a walk and talk, like a narrative drama. A good example would be, did you ever see the movie The Social Network?
yes,
Okay, so the Social Network was done by the composer. That was a David Fincher movie, and he directed that. And the composer was Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails.
yep,
And you think that that movie could have been done by James Newton Howard, who did Pretty Woman, but he could
yeah,
like change the tone and make it for a man. The great thing about having um, Trent Reznor do it is that he comes from such a different influence. And by the way, he's a very literate musician. He can read music. He played in, symphonic band, marching band, and all that sort of stuff. But his musical realizations are very expressive. So he's able to, even though that was not obviously not a horror film, but he was able to do something imaginative and different to really um, to really notarize himself within that medium of film and music, which is, I'll go back to Killer Clowns, which is what I tried to do with Killer Clowns from Outer Space, is to distinguish myself as being different, because I couldn't do that kind of music shortly after or before. No one would understand it, but it was like right up my alley with all my influences from when I was a kid and experiences with music and film. But I don't know if I'm answering your question now. I may have gone
you
on
are,
a
you
tangent.
are.
Okay, so um, it's like what it affords from a creative aspect, being a composer in this crazy business, that it gives you a chance to be very creative, and the audience and the um, filmmakers would be, are welcoming it. I go, oh my goodness, this is so good. It's so different than anything else, And as a matter of fact, that's what the Kyoto
Right,
brothers said. They rattle off the names of like 3 or 4 different horror films, and he says, we can't stand the music to this thing, we can't stand the music to this thing. I go, what do you like? And they told me the films that they like. Oh, okay. Those were films that I grew up really enjoying too, and the music really meant something to me. So I think we can definitely work in that direction, and luckily everything worked out. Now, it was one of the few movies that I worked on, where everything wasn't there wasn't a committee for everything. The killers just said, "I love this. This is very imaginative. I've never heard anything like this. Great." Whereas I'm used to hearing, "Oh my gosh, is there something wrong with the tape machine? Why? Well, what's that sound? It sounds like it's going out of tune." Like, well, that's on purpose, you know. Oh, we can't have that. There'd be these discussions about. When I worked on the Ray Bradbury Theater, that happened, and I had to do that long distance in the days way before the internet, where I had to like talk to people on the phone, and they would say, "We're listening to your music. It sounds like, was something wrong with the tape speed of your?" No, that's actually an effect. Like, it's these cascading sounds. They're falling because I had to explain the scene emotionally to them, and so they just weren't getting it. And they only used like one of those pieces of music. They basically took everything out and left one because it had the fewest falling sounds. But I still got nominated for before there was for cable television. Before there was the Emmys, there was the Ace Awards. So I got the cable Ace nomination for that, because of that sound, that falling sound.
Right.
Someone thought, "Wow, that one scene was really awesome," and so I got a nomination. It's like, and there are there's hundreds of pieces of content that came out that year, and I got picked. So I felt good that, like, okay, it's not just me. It's like sometimes where you work with producers and creative teams, they're kind of looking for something familiar, and then there's those people that if you do something familiar, they send back to the drawing board. I did a film where a director said, why did you do it was a biblical film. It was a biblical film that will never be released in legal problems. And I did this like 5 years ago, and he goes, "Why did you do music like this on that scene?" And I said, "Well, it's what the director temp tracked into the movie, and so I figured, okay, that's what he wants." He goes, "No, what would you do? I want to know what you would do. Go, just do it again the way you would do it." I go, "Absolutely." So a week later, I came back with it, and they were very happy with it, and I was very happy. The director wasn't happy because he liked his idea, but it was familiar to him. It wasn't
Right.
like stretching a boundary, where
Right.
you could say, "Wow, look at our thing is different because our thing is unique because we did this approach to it." So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
don't know if any of this is
I
making sense
definitely,
to you.
no, it makes perfect sense. And I think that
Yeah.
that's absolutely wonderful.
Hmm.
That's definitely a lot of great context because, you know, um, that's great to know the differences and stuff like that. And I do think that that's true for anything. Like, you have your own brand, your way of doing things. And sometimes you get those moments where your way of doing things isn't the way that other people do that, and you have to find those ways to be true to yourself. And I think being more authentic is more makes more of a splash. I mean, obviously you're known for Killer Clowns for a reason because of the
Hmm.
fact that your music, the way that you compose the music with that, ties in so perfectly with that film. And I think that's just a perfect example of music. If you have a favorite horror movie soundtrack, what is it?
Um, well, okay. The quick answer would be The Shining. That was Wendy Carlos, who adapted some of Hector Berlioz' music from opera, from Symphonie Fantastique, not from opera, excuse me. And there was also Ligeti was used in that. I liked it very much. As far as a recent one, there's you're probably going to cut this out because I don't remember the title of the movie. There's a horror film where there is like some kind of a like an alien, like a gray, alien, and he talks, and the composer that did that score was absolutely brilliant. T-Bone Burnett did a score to a crime series, true crime series, with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. That was absolutely brilliant. First of all, hands down, the story was
True Detective.
True Detective, exactly. And I I would I would say that had aspects of horror in it.
Oh, definitely. The new season, they do different ones for each season. The new
Uh-huh.
season that they're doing, I would say definitely is more horror, like with
Mm-hmm.
the trailer that they released, because it's very more like a serial killer aspect, like definitely kind of taking different shades. So I think like the themes that they laid down with the Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson
Mm-hmm.
series, I think they're kind of amping that more for this, because the whole idea is the crime happens at like the edge of the world. So I'm thinking like Antarctica, Alaska, something like that.
Wow.
Um, so that's
I got to
automatically
check that out.
terrifying to
I
begin.
did not realize that's an ongoing series, and there's still more. They're still doing new ones.
Yeah, they did. They stopped it for a while because they did have like a season there that wasn't as popular. But the new season has Jodie Foster in it as like one of the titular characters.
I got to
And
check that
yeah,
out.
it's like her and her partner. They find this murder, and it ends up connecting back to a bunch of like realistic, ritualistic murders.
Wow.
And it's like I think it's either Antarctica or like somewhere in Alaska, and they have to deal with like the brutal climate and like that kind of really like in the woods kind of feel. So, but I would definitely say that that's a horror,
Yeah.
especially anything true crime.
Also, just about anything that uh, Miss Young has composed the music for in horror is very engaging. Is very. I wish I could remember all the titles, but I'd seen them. I don't know if you're familiar with a YouTuber, Dead Meat James. He
James
interviewed me.
Denise.
Yeah, James Denise, and he interviewed me. And there was a movie that I had not seen that um, was like a psychological yet you know actual flat out horror movie with like some spirit monster, and that was done by Chris Young. I wish I remembered the name of it, but Chris Young had employed a technique of composing where he would collect a bunch of sounds and musical sounds and musical tonalities, and he would stretch them and manipulate them, and it was very poignant because that was part of the story. In that there was a family that would be at a house, and they would find this film that would show like 8 millimeter film that would show them. So, it would be like in the basement. They would find it, and the dad would look at it. He would be obsessed with trying to find out what happened to the previous family that lived there. So it was
It's
like
sinister.
it's sinister. There you go. So that was a magnificent.
That movie is
Score.
terrifying.
Oh, absolutely
Um,
terrifying. I got
the score, yeah,
goosebumps right now.
the score is terrifying. It's a funny, anybody who watches this podcast, they will tell you this story. But when I was pregnant with my son, I went and saw Sinister. My
Wow.
son's father at the time was like, let's go watch this. And I would not advise watching. I love Sinister, and I will watch it like when it's on or when I see it on now. But when you're pregnant and you're watching a movie about kids killing their parents, that's not a good idea. I remember like looking down at my stomach and being like, you better not come out and do this to me. Uh, so, but yeah, I mean, that movie is terrifying, and especially the fact that a lot of it is Ethan Hawke, where he's, watching these films and it's very gritty and gruesome to begin with, and he's kind of isolated, but then the soundtrack to it, like it's
Mhm.
terrifying. So
Oh,
I knew
it's like,
exactly what you're.
the story is expertly crafted, and the direction and the casting. So many, there's so many. It's just firing on all cylinders, stuff like that. It's just that to me is like high end um, horror. That's not. It's like when you watch it, and you go, guys, that's not funny. That is really scary.
Yeah, yeah, it's like okay, I don't want to believe that this could be happening somewhere, but
Hmm.
maybe after
Yeah,
watching this, like,
right.
yeah, I think that that's a fantastic film. And James A. Denise is a wonderful. I've watched the interview that he's done with you,
Hmm.
and I am a avid Dead Meat fan, so we will definitely link that interview down below in the
Okay,
description, because
great.
I think that that's a wonderful interview, and he does a fantastic job. I
He
think
was
he's
at
kind of
my.
the nerd in all of this.
I met him. This is how I met him. I had seen. I had run. I don't know how I did. I ran across his kill count in 2018, 2017, or something like that. I think they had just figured it out, like, because he was doing other stuff before that, but he figured it out. And I produced this concert, live to film concert in Hollywood, Killer Klowns. So we had an orchestra, and you can see it on my YouTube channel. There's like, I have the grand finale of the concert. But I thought, how cool would it be to have him be there? I wanted him to be the master of ceremonies, but I think he wanted to just make content. So I had another fellow by the name of James Branscombe, who who runs an outfit called they primarily show a lot of horror movies. They have a lot of film festivals. Um, um, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name of his organization. But anyways, he was the one that was kind of like the master of ceremonies, and what the person that was the MC that would make all the announcements was Zoran, who works with James now, and
Yeah,
who's filled in. Um, Cinematic Void was the organization that kind of like helped me with the doing the Q&As and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so James and Chelsea were there, and they did a lot of really great interviews. They interviewed one of the characters that came to the evening, who unfortunately is not with us anymore. And he got a really good interview with him, which was like basically a tribute. And so that was a lot of fun.
yeah, I appreciate we use the dead meat, especially the kill count when it comes to a lot of our episodes,
Right.
um, between him and Found Flicks, because I think both of them arbitrarily do such a good job in explaining certain nuances in different movies, but
Mm-hmm.
also getting people to watch those movies. Like they really are kind of pumping, okay, we want you to watch this and kind of gauge this for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But then also too, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna kind of bring up the themes and the trivia and everything, so that way we give you some background,
Right.
which I think it's hard to do, um,
Oh, it
kind of
is.
carving out your own corner.
It is. It is greatly. The way they approach it, and they're just like, they are sticklers for trivia and all the little tiny details. Just sticklers for it.
Yeah, they set the bar really high. I know James is one of the first people, him and Found Flicks, when I had started conceptualizing what I wanted to do for this podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
watched a lot of both of their material, and I still do to this
Mm-hmm.
day. But I just think they set such a good example for the horror community and kind of teaching people about carving their own niche in horror.
Hmm.
So I'll definitely leave that down below. So before we end this interview, what is in the future for John Massari?
Okay. Thank you for asking. I am currently working on a lot of music for the Killer Clown brand. That has nothing to do with the video game. So that's all.
Excitement.
I have it. I have it. As a matter of fact, after we finish and I have a little dinner, I'm going to get back to it, and I have to send something back to Europe to have someone work on something. So yeah. So that's what's happening. That's all I can tell you. I can tell you that much. I won't get in trouble for saying that.
Well, you guys heard it here. I mean, that's pretty big though, even
Mm-hmm.
being able to say that. So
Mm-hmm.
I know everyone will be looking forward to that. Thank you so much
Well,
for
it's not going
coming
to be
on.
next week. It's not going to be next week or in
Yeah.
a few months.
Yeah, no,
It's
no,
some.
no. Listen,
Yeah.
listen, we waited this long for all
Right.
the content that we've gotten over the last, especially with all the different projects. So if
Mm-hmm.
anything, the Killer Clowns fans know how to do, it's be patient and know that good material is coming.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
So
one thing I can tell you about when the video game comes out, I have plans to performing the music live. Just music on its own, or with either the game just projected in the background, or gamers playing the game while we're doing music performances. Because I had some of the band the Dickies, the current
yes.
the current lineup musicians that play in the Dickies. Three of them played on the game in the game. So they played for the game. I mean, they're among many other musicians as well. I've probably,
Right.
gosh, there's at least 20 different musicians that played, including me, on it. So it's going to be fun trying to, uh, schedule around the Dickies concert schedule and what I want to do when the time comes. I mean, because I have, first of all, the video has to come out and do its own thing. You know what I mean? People that got to get into it. And then while that's going on, I'm developing like a show that I could say, hey, guess what? You can see the video game played by professional gamers, and I'll be playing the score, and we'll have a fun night, for the whole family kind of thing. So there's that one I can talk about. So that one I just did talk
Well,
about.
that's super exciting. Now, this is the episode that's going to come out for our last episode of the year.
Mhm.
So what is your New Year's resolution for the upcoming year, if you have one?
New Year's resolution. There's well, it's the same one there's always been. There's always room for improvement.
I like that. I feel the same way. Listen, as
Right,
long as it's a somewhat of an improvement from last year, we're moving in the right direction.
right, absolutely.
Well, thank
Cassandra,
you so much for coming.
thank you, Cassandra. I really appreciate you inviting me. And I was in the Poconos, which is in Pennsylvania, which is like a neighbor of Ohio. I may be coming. I may be
Yes.
going back next summer. I'm not sure. They have to invite me, but definitely if I'm out there. I don't usually get invited to the various conventions. I mean, occasionally I have been, but it's not my main thing. But definitely, if I do come out there, hopefully for something, hopefully we can get together and meet in person.
Yeah, definitely. If you're ever up this way, let us know. We would love to take you to Cedar Point one day and show you all the screams that's up there.
I would love to see it.
So,
I would love to.
but thank you so much for coming on, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody. Bye. Oh, wait a minute.
Bye.
Hold on.
Oh, hold on one
Hold
second.
on.
Let me. I'm ending. Hold on. Oh, there's Shorty.
Shorty says bye. Hi. He was doing his homework while we were
Well,
doing
until
this.
next time, fans, this
Take
is me,
care.
Cassandra, from the Horrorcraft Podcast, saying bye. I'm
Bye.
going to end this.